Okay, hello and welcome to the Front Range Anthroposophical Café. And this is June 19th, and we have Hazel Archer with us today. And we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Tom Altgeld so we can get us started.
Thank you, Jamie. Welcome, dear friends. Let's get started by lighting the candle. And it's a beautiful beeswax candle that I hope will go for many, many of our gatherings. Again, just the analogy of the uprightness of the flame that brings light and warmth into the world. May we be flames in that same sense. We'll read today from the Calendar of the Soul, verse 11, just before St. John's Tide. And this again is the translation by Christopher Bamford, as used by Patsy Scala in her book, Weekly Meditations. In the hour of the sun, it is up to you to understand these tidings filled with wisdom. Feel yourself inwardly experiencing the human eye can lose itself and find itself in the eye of the world. And Dorothea will read a different translation.
In this, the sun's high hour, it rests with you to understand these words of wisdom. Surrendered to the beauty of the world, be stirred with new enlivened feeling. The human eye can lose itself and find itself within the cosmic eye.
What a wonderful verse. What a wonderful introduction to the title of what we're doing tonight with Hazel Archer-Ginsberg from Chicago. And her theme has been addressed in this verse, cosmic rapture, grounded in jubilant hearts. From summer solstice to St. John's Tide. And Hazel will explore a number of themes. We'll see what we have time to get to. But first off, what is the spiritual significance of a solar eclipse on the summer solstice? I wasn't aware of it until I saw it written in Hazel's proposal of questions we'll talk about tonight. And then how do we stand wakefully within the sublime mysteries of summertide? How do we consciously embody the spiritual wisdom of the gods? And we're used to, in our culture, celebrating Christmas and Easter, but the counterpart to Christmas is St. John's Tide. Just as the counterpart to Easter is Michaelmas. And finally, the biggest question of all, who is the mysterious Archangel of Summer? What an evening we have in front of us. Well, what is the secret to healing the soul fever so prevalent in society today? For those of you who don't know Hazel, she's an essayist, a lecturer, a poet, an interdenominational minister, an anthroposopher, working with the festivals, coordinating the Chicago Rudolf Steiner branch. She has a traveling sneakers program and she's on the Central Regional Council of the Anthroposophical Society. With that, I turn it over to you, Hazel. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And I'll move the candle out of the way.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, friends. So good to be here. And thank you. Let's really just join our intentions together to redeem this ether sphere, to infuse it with our goodwill and our intention to embody Anthroposophia, working with the mighty spirit of Michael to consecrate. And you know what? Let's reclaim the cloud. That's what I say. We should reclaim the cloud for the etheric Christ. So yeah, as Tom said, we are gathering on a very auspicious day. It started out at dawn this morning. The old crescent moon rose with Venus, the goddess of love, hidden behind it in what is referred to as an occultation, a sort of mini eclipse. So Venus, which spiritual science calls occult Mercury, topic for another subject, has just switched over to being our morning star and is now having this occult moment with Bella Luna coming up over the horizon only to be hidden by the light of the rising sun in the east, on her way to becoming a new moon, eclipsing the sun tomorrow night. Yeah, a lot to think about. And today, some of us may have heard probably for the first time, we don't get taught these things in history, but it's referred to as Juneteenth. And it commemorates this announcement in Texas of the emancipation of the slaves. Now, what's interesting about it is that it was actually 2 years after the proclamation. So yeah, I think we're still trying to catch up to that, aren't we? And also tonight is the eve of the summer solstice, which means sun stands still, right? So we're going to explore this ancient festival in preparation for living into the new mysteries of St. John's Tide. And it's also the eve of the full strawberry or honey moon of June. The ancients always celebrated everything on the eve. That's when the power is really, really rising and palpable. So with this, we'll be able to experience an annular solar eclipse, which means if you live in Europe and Asia, Australia, Africa, you would see a ring of fire around the sun, because Bella Luna comes between the sun and the earth, cutting off the rays of our day star. But friends, even if we don't see this cosmic and earthly event, we are still subject to its influences. So in Human Questions and Cosmic Answers, Rudolf Steiner tells us that behind this physical event, there is a significant spiritual reality. So to give us perspective, on a normal day, when there's no eclipse, the rays of the sun penetrate down to the earth. Right? We experience its warmth and light. We see its effect, how it makes the plants grow, etc. But spiritual science asks us to think, about this light differently, as beings of the second hierarchy, living in the sun, who also have the task of meeting and mediating the rays of human will streaming out into the cosmos, right? Did you know that all of your thoughts and impulses are constantly streaming out from us, right? So they are usually met by these rays of the sun, which counteract all of those unconscious instincts and passions, which are constantly streaming out from us. So that's something to think about, isn't it? Especially since Steiner calls these impulses coming from our unconscious human will unbridled urges. And, you know, FYI, our subconscious will spewing out all over the place, you know what? It's not always so beautiful. And at the time of a solar eclipse, since these, quote, unchecked impulses are not met by the sun, they are able to radiate out into the darkness, surging out into universal space in what Steiner calls a, quote, abnormal way. So the good doctor calls these impulses evil because they, quote, miss the mark, made up as they are of unconscious, selfish instincts and passions. But the good news, my friends, according to Steiner, is that an eclipse acts like a safety valve to provide an outlet for pressure that's built up. It's an opportunity to blow off steam, to avert the danger of a more catastrophic explosion in the human social sphere. We can certainly feel that there's a lot of not so beautiful mojo swimming around in the ethers right now, right? A lot of hot air, a lot of unrest. And this pressure certainly has been building up with the pandemic, with Black Lives Matter. So this eclipse series, which started on the new moon with the lunar eclipse, we can see it as a gift from the cosmos, like a grace that an illness can bring to help us foster our spiritual growth, you know, to wake us up. So it seems like this eclipse is really coming at the perfect time. It's the perfect storm. Since, yeah, it really does feel like we're living in a pressure cooker right now. So this safety valve is gonna help blow off some steam. So instead of all the deep unconscious fear, scorn, hatred, yep, the three beasts, continuing to build up here in the social sphere, keeping us all trapped in our own unconscious behaviors, these energies get released, handed over to the powerful spiritual beings of the cosmos. But the only sticking point, according to spiritual science, is that these unbridled impulses that normally affect only the human beings here on Earth, since they aren't mediated by the sun, right? They can flow out into the ethers and affect other beings. For instance, the souls of the dead, or those coming into incarnation, as well as those souls that have become stuck between the earth and the moon, right? Some traditions call them hungry ghosts. They get stuck there because of their materialistic tendencies. They're not able to expand out to receive the higher forces of the spiritual world. So Steiner tells us that these beings can become, quote, contaminated by these uncontrolled astral impulses, making them susceptible to the adversarial forces that look to enslave them, to be their agents of destruction, employed to manifest things like disease, war, unwittingly working with these adversarial beings to prevent our higher human evolution. And of course, we know that all of these things happen for a reason, don't we? So, friends, we are being called to work together with the progressive spiritual beings to hold the light during the solar eclipse, which begins tomorrow night on the summer solstice, about 10:30 p.m. Central Time, and goes through the evening. So you can take it into your sleep. It goes until about 5 o'clock in the morning of the 21st, which is Father's Day. Something to think about too, with this idea of the benevolent father, right? The benevolent king. You know, maybe we can do some healing about the patriarchy as well. So yeah, as anthroposophers, as people that are trying to wake up to our destiny, we know that we must work to be conscious, that we have to be active in our willing for good. We have to work not from fear, but in freedom. So yeah, let's not forget that we, here we are. We signed up to be here during these potent times. And we are asked to step up, to read the cosmic script, to speak with the stars, to do our part. So friends, after I'm going to give a few leading thoughts now about the summer solstice. And the question that we're going to take into the breakout rooms will be, what does it mean that there's a solar eclipse on the summer solstice? I mean, here it is. It's the time of the greatest outbreath, right? When the sun stands still at its very peak, and its rays will be blocked by the moon, creating a ring of fire. So what does that mean? Let's let that live in us now as we hear about the background of the summer solstice. Let this question work in the background of our minds. As we contemplate summer solstice, the longest day of the year. But of course, if we had time, we would also discuss John the Baptist, whose festival is on the fixed date of June 24th, which, just as Tom said, it's opposite of Christmas Eve on the wheel of the year. So there's a lot to see here in this slide. I just put this here as a little teaser for us. We could spend a whole week retreat on this being celebrated in our time as St. John's Tide. And yeah, there's a lot to explore with this earnest archangel of summer, Uriel. And a lot to talk about with the elemental world. And the summer constellations have a lot to tell us. And so I would be happy to bring these leading thoughts to your community, but for tonight, we have time to practice spirit recalling, to contemplate the summer solstice, recalling that in ancient times, human consciousness worked in an entirely different way. Thoughts had more of a dreamy quality, living in pictures, arising in human souls as insights, which later gave birth to what we know as mythology, legend, fairy tale. So through this dreamy, instinctively clairvoyant consciousness, people saw more deeply into the spiritual environment connected with the seasons and the various aspects of nature. They entered into the sprouting, burgeoning plant life, sensed themselves blossom and ripen. Actually, that sounds a lot like biodynamics today, doesn't it? Yeah, I think they certainly felt the whole environment to be different when the air was filled with fluttering butterflies and humming bees. But Steiner tells us, in those ancient times, they took no particular interest in the mineral world or in the individual human eye, in the higher ego. And so it was during this phase of human evolution that at the time of the summer solstice, there were a great many ceremonies originating in the mystery schools, which acted like a catalyst, bringing to the human being something approximating the I, the ego consciousness, turning it on like a light switch under the power of the sun standing still. It was as if the ego was then able to shine into their dreamy consciousness on the one hand, and a true perception of the mineral kingdom was revealed on the other side. So through these ceremonies, the participants were led in activities like round dances, having a strong rhythmic quality, accompanied by poetry and singing, which unfolded a musical, poetic mood into the environment, a call to the light. So certain performances and rites outpictured what they had living in their dream consciousness. And this was poured out into the cosmos, offered up in the form of music, in song and dance. Everything the people did had the single goal of bringing about a certain soul mood to open the way for the shining in of the higher I. So the initiates of the mystery schools, their priests and priestesses, gave them a foundation for these ceremonies. But Steiner mentions that if we were to ask these ancient peoples how they came up with these traditions, they would have said, and I quote, this is Steiner putting it into the words of the ancients, I love this. "It is learned from the songbirds. We sing as the birds do. And our song, like theirs, which streams forth from our throats into cosmic expanses, returns to the earth as a blessing, fructifying the earthly life with divine spiritual impulses, which find their way back in on the waves that have been sung out in the ethers." Isn't that beautiful? I mean, I'm living into that. Yeah, so gosh, you know what? We may have forgotten why the songbirds sing, but we do. We have kept the art of song, the art of poetry, even in this materialistic intellectualism. When most of us have forgotten that the connection, you know, there is this amazing connection between singing and the whole universe. And so, friends, I'm here to remind you that yes, in the summer, when the larks and the nightingales sing, what is formed through their song, which streams out into the cosmos, not just through the air, but through the etheric element, you know, it vibrates out into the cosmos, up to the boundary of the zodiac. And then it vibrates back to earth to be received again like a kind of spiritual sonar. Only now, the divine essence of the cosmos has united with it. Powerful. So what has been sent forth comes back to them etherically to be used as formative forces for when they're not singing, right? During the cold time of the year, right? And now they become filled with this vitality of the divine spiritual. So the human being, like the larks, send out their voices, and the formative forces of these spiritual beings of the cosmos, the planetary beings, the hierarchies, which took part in the creation of all life, streams back to them, reverberates back to the earth on the waves of sound, which had streamed out in the song. So this is actually the origin of the musical tradition call and response. Have you ever done a call and response? If we were in person and we were doing a festival, we would do a little call and response right now. But I think you know what I'm talking about. And here's this great quote from Steiner. "Every year at midsummer, an offering must be made to the spiritual beings of the cosmos in gratitude for the thoughts they bestow on humanity and for the gift from the sun of our higher I. If we forget to give this recognition, if we forget that we are connected to Source, it is all too easy for the Luciferic powers to invade our thinking. And we are then permeated by false powers of light. We can avoid this if we are mindful how the upper gods have given us our altruistic thoughts and inspirations. And so, at the midsummer season, we can let our thoughts flow back to them again, like a song of gratitude to the gods." So, in this way, the folk of olden times worked to safeguard themselves from Luciferic influences, right? This is something we must do for ourselves today in our own way. And so for them, their leaders, the leaders of the mysteries, they would call together their pupils and enact a fervent rite, which had them sing or chant solemn words into the rising smoke of a bonfire. Okay, can you picture that? So this speaking set the smoke into waves, inscribing into the outer medium of the rising smoke through form-creating words, the offering of their innermost soul. Can you picture that? So the sound vibration coming from the human voice sets the waves into motion. So it's interesting to note what spiritual science affirms, that in the future, the human larynx will become our organ of reproduction. Yeah, so this is a remembrance of that time and a prefiguring of what is to come in the future. Something to really think about here. Of course, if we had time, we would really talk about this. It's really a powerful imagination, this singing into the rising smoke, this idea of the larynx as an organ of reproduction. So yeah, all life contributes to this sounding, which adds our earthly strains to the music of the spheres. And in those ancient times, this was instinctively understood. We have to practice spirit recalling, folks, to remember that. We can still do it today in our own way. So, for the human being, not only the speaking, but afterward, the listening. Remember that at the summer solstice, the out-breath reaches its fullest expansion, right? And after that, we begin this process of breathing back in what was sent out. So first, there's this active performance in the festivals, the giving out, and then the people were directed to listen to what came back to them. With our modern consciousness, we can imagine it like in this example of how water evaporates, right? It rises to form clouds above, and then the water comes down again as rain. So the human being puts out the call, and the response manifests itself as the power of the higher I, the higher self. They could feel the transformation which took place in the air and in the warmth around the earth at the height of summer, charging the etheric realm with cosmic forces, giving an insight into all that goes on in the plant and in the mineral and in the animal kingdoms. It wakes it up for them. For the air is quite different than when the flowers are blooming, or again, when the fruit is formed. So these festivals gave the opportunity for an intimate communication, which also helped them send out their life questions to the divine in the universe. So we can think of it as like a cosmic divination. This was possible. And so when they open to receive these answers from above, that's that listening part. And again, here Steiner tells us, in summer, the process of outbreathing is at its height. The earth has given its soul to the cosmos. The earth, the soul of the earth, strives toward the stars. It wants to know about the life of the stars and planets. And in its own way, it is most united with the movements of the stars through the light of the summer sun. So the ancients knew this time of year is symbolized by the union of Father Sun and Mother Earth. If we had time, we could do a little myth telling here. Many, many, many legends and stories about Father Sun and Mother Earth coming together. And with the advent of Christ's deed, we can now know that the summertime union between sun and earth is actually a reunion between the divine gods and their human offspring, and a prefiguring of the future unification of sun, moon, and earth. So, I'm asking again, what does it mean to have a solar eclipse at this important time of the summer solstice? My friends, the cosmic portal still opens every year at this time. But now in our age of the consciousness soul, we must consciously rise in our thinking with the intention of enlivening our eye with these cosmic impulses. This is what Steiner calls the reverse ritual. We must tune in with awakened heart thinking to re-establish communication, a union between the earthly and the heavenly, a true communion. Our thinking prepares the way, as the baptizer would say, right? It becomes the bridge between the above and below. Yeah, our work is not to leave our consciousness expanded out. Oh, it feels so good. Yeah, no, that would make us vulnerable to the adversarial forces. No, after the summer solstice, we must practice metanoia, which literally means to turn around thinking, to transform our hearts and minds, to do as the Baptist tells us, repent, make straight the path. So through metanoia, we consciously awaken to the I am. We are called to breathe into our responsibility. Yeah, to inhale when the out breath is complete, to bring our I back to life on earth and put it to work, using our awakened consciousness to harvest the insights gathered from the cosmic realms into our heart thinking. Our human soul, like the earth soul, we've expanded, and our work as we move from summer solstice to St. John's tide is to consciously digest all that we've taken in with reverence and wonder, in gratitude, with love and in freedom. So yeah, this is time for our conversation. This is our question. I hope that I've given you some insights that you can let this question percolate with you. What is the spiritual significance of a solar eclipse on the summer solstice?
Thank you very much, Hazel, for all that you brought there. Some beautiful thoughts and beautiful artwork. And so why don't we go into our breakout rooms now? I think we have the question that's been clear. So welcome back, everyone. I hope we had good conversations in our little breakout rooms. And now this is the time where I invite people from the various groups to share any particular gems or insights. And so you would just need to be brave, unmute yourself, and speak up. So go ahead.
I will begin. Okay, we had a fabulous group. Thank you for giving us so much time, number one. It was lovely. And we had talked about, reflected on a lot of what Hazel said, the energy, the negative energies, I mentioned censorship happening for my daughter and myself, my daughter's 16. And we talked about a little bit about fear of laws being changed. But I want to, share, I don't want to have fear in my vocabulary. I want to look at the whatever I can to be positive, be connected, and work with people around us, not try to be worried about the entire world. Okay?
Wow.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Wow.
somebody else.
Wow, not to be worried about the whole world.
You know, I could,
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Charlene.
okay, I could add to that because it's the hula hoop image that if we imagine our hula hoop, what we're responsible for, our thoughts, our actions, what's within our hula hoop, and then what's outside our hula hoop. You know, other people's actions, other people's thoughts, the weather, the virus, you know, that's not in our hula hoop. And when we think about our hula hoop and somebody else in their hula hoop, you can't hula hoop in somebody else's hula hoop. I don't know of anybody who's been able to do that, or them in their hula hoop, us in our hula hoop. So, and the hula hoop is, even though it's our boundary, it's not a wall. We have doors that we can open and close. So that is helpful because it is easy to just go into that fear. I mean, it's good to be aware of those beasts, the fear, the doubt, and the scorn or, you know, mockery. But who controls those doors? I think we do to some degree. Thank you.
We talked a fair amount about the rhythms of these different cycles, and obviously the fact that the solstice is the time of this out breath, right? You can see it reflected in the vegetation. The question arose, and I felt we were a little more awkward around what would be the anthroposophical understanding of the new moon. And our guess, or at least my guess, was that, well, you can also feel that there's a rising with the waxing of the full moon. And on the other hand, with the new moon, you almost have, I would feel that was more of an in-breath where you kind of now enter this calm. So the question was, would it be appropriate to think of that new moon could have a tempering effect on what's otherwise this rising out breath energy, and also maybe even a tempering effect on that blowing off steam of the eclipse that Hazel talked about. So there's a question there maybe we could, that arose for us as far as what would be a way of looking at the energy of the new moon. And then later too, I had a question about this idea of the blowing off steam of the eclipse. I can see how if the sun's rays are not countering some of those astral emissions or subconscious things that we're releasing, that then they're, we're blowing off steam, but and in the sense of a release like a pressure cooker or something, then that is the safety valve, right? Letting off steam. But I was less clear about how we counteract that without the help of the sun's rays. So anyway, we talked a lot about the rhythms, I would say, in our group.
Hunter, could I add one little piece about the new moon?
Mm-hmm.
It's when we speak to Isis Sophia in the astrosophy. So it's really important to be able to speak to the stars that day. But every new moon, astrosophers, according to Rudolf Steiner's guidance to Elizabeth Reda, we say this verse every new moon. So there's something in that would be very helpful.
Isis Sophia. Yeah.
You've probably seen the little snippet of it. Isis Sophia, Lucifer has slain you and carried you off into the worldwide widths of space. Anyway, that's it's longer than that. The whole thing is 3 pages long, and that's what astrosophers do every new moon.
Thank you.
In our group, it was fruitful, and Anya gave us a wonderful cosmic perspective of what was happening. And then we realized that what we were dealing with was individual on one level, ranging from rural Arkansas to Brooklyn, New York, and that ultimately everybody deals with it in their own individual way, and we can just take the positive things in and work them out as they come forth in what approaches us.
I had a question for Hazel, if I might. When you were talking about, these astral thoughts and going out and affecting incoming bodies and souls that are coming to the earth, I've been looking recently at the chart during my gestation period, before I was. So would that affect us, for those of us, because like I was born in 57, so I'm thinking, like during the World War II, of all those souls that died and were leaving Earth, and I was probably getting close to the Earth, would it affect people that close to incarnation, you think? Or would it be, just curious about that? You sparked a thought for me. So.
Is it okay to answer questions now, or do we?
Yeah, this is certainly, this tends to be the gray time. The idea was, the groups will share and then we answer questions, but I think we can kind of have that happen organically.
We can go back and forth.
Yeah, so please do, but that may mean also that anybody has something to share a little bit later. We still have plenty of time to do that. So yeah, go ahead, Hazel, and answer that question if you can.
Yeah, and that really ties into with what Hunter said or asked. But yes, I truly believe that, Einstein talks many times, especially in karmic relationships, around this passing of individuals that are going into the spiritual world and some that are coming out, and the interaction that they can have, and how important that is into creating what the world will be. Sort of a, hey, this is what's going on there. This is what you have to look forward to. And hey, wait a second, you better fix this or you better fix that. So I think for sure, all of those effects are part of your, we could materialistically say your DNA, but part of, the reason you chose to incarnate at this time was to have that experience with those other beings. So yeah, I think that would be a wonderful biography question for you to explore. And and to what Hunter was saying, yeah, so okay, so the sun isn't doing that work for us. So we, and in preparation for becoming the 10th hierarchy, are being tapped to say, yeah, eventually you will become a sun, just like the earth will become a sun. As human beings, we are little suns. So we have to shine our individual light out at the time of darkness, and with this intention of taking up that mantle.
Talking about taking up the mantle, for me, when you talk about the sun and the moon coming together, I was told we were talking about, my idea was in the group, was about how consciousness is planted in the spring and then it begins to come forth in summer and burned off, the different weeds and things, and then in the fall we gather. My idea of it all is for the basis of all humanity. I have never, I think about the whole world. There are monks that are sitting on the fault, the Andes fault, doing nothing but chanting, and there are people that are crawling in Tibet for the whole of humanity. I always consider all of humanity, because I am a God, everybody is a God. And what we do here on the 54th floor, a lot of people on 22nd floor don't quite get it, but we're supposed to shine like hermit card number 9. Come on up, children. Come on up. So this is a time for the spiritual significance of the ability to burn off, to accept that altar, that great mantle of my brothers and sisters. We are all here. We are together. And each one has to reach one. And I am complete.
Amen, sister. You got it. That's it. That's it in a nutshell right there. And we're given these opportunities, these little, these little pop quizzes, right? But they're not even pop quizzes. They're because we know they're coming. This is all predicted. We know ahead of time that this is happening, and gives us time to contemplate it and get our shield and our armor on and link up together with all of our like-minded ones and do the work. Step in.
Shall we ask her what she had to say about it?
We talked about in our group making our practice in the next 3 or 4 days consciously united with the Mikhail school, living and dead around the world, and also as a homeopathic remedy to any of the overwhelmingly evil processes that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our members actually sang to us for a minute or two. So we're all going to try to sing at least once or twice, perhaps morning, sunset and sunrise, as the sun's, in union with the sun, and then go into the darkness with that idea that we can be the balance.
Beautiful. I think that's very potent. I mean, that's why, like I said in my group, I think it's really important that we read what Steiner gives us around the ancient mysteries, because we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, folks. Of course, we're not doing things the way they did, unconsciously just becoming vessels. We are, oh yeah, wow, we can use our larynx to vibrate sound and create a change in our environment. Right? We can be creative with our song. So, why not take these things up and do it in a conscious way? Many of us are actually going to be doing a prepster tomorrow evening. So same sort of idea.
In our group, we talked a lot about the breathing. So, if you look at the element of what we're experiencing, the earth is breathing out and in these times as we go through these cycles. And where the veil to the spiritual world is also thinner, where these things can permeate further out and we can receive. The concept of the bonfire and the smoke, the concept of the fact that COVID is all about breathing, or I can't breathe with the Black Lives Matter. I'm sorry, I'm tired. It's Friday evening. But all of this, even when we talk, when we sing, what the birds do, it's all about the breath and how we prepare and understand what we take in and give back out was, a big area of the conversation that we had. And even the fact of, some of us thinking about, going back to musical kinds of ways of expressing. One of our members, and bless her heart, she's in Fort Worth right now, dealing with a really nasty storm. So we heard parts of what she had to say, but she's learning how to sing arias again, which we thought was just, amazing, trying to do those kinds of things, where she was able to then, again, through her breath, be able to express, and communicate outwardly.
Beautiful. Thank you. So inspiring.
We talked about in our group what a great time to call on John the Baptist to help us turn our thinking around and transform our thinking and to use our voice and sing love and vibrate love into our world, and vibrate love and to sing freely. I wrote down a 70s song I used to know. It's called Canta Libre. It's a Neil Diamond song. But what a beautiful thought, to sing freely and to resonate that out, and just sing love into our world. That's all. We talked about many things, but it was a learning experience. Thank you.
Perfect.
Hazel, might you touch on who is this mysterious Archangel of Summer? I don't think we got a chance to go there much yet. Can you take us a little bit in that direction of the Archangel Uriel?
Yeah, you know, there's so much wonderful art out there that, from indications from Steiner, you know, you can really picture this being, you know, looking down. You know, the gaze is very earnest and directing the human being to look into the earth. So we're directed to look into the mineral world. So, you know, as we know, the mineral world has its highest body in the highest realms of spirit. So when we gaze into the earth and see these minerals, and anybody who's got a crystal, they can see, you know, how amazing, you know, the structure of it is. Let's talk about sacred geometry. And these things are in the earth, in the darkness of the earth, and yet you pull them out and they're all about light. So he's directing our gaze to look into these formations in the earth, and we can see in these formations all of those parts of ourselves that are not perfect. This is that metanoia that I was talking about, that John the Baptist talks about, this idea of making straight the path. If we look down into the mineral world, we see our deeds written there, just like we see written in the Akashic world, our thoughts, etc. So there's this as above, so below piece that Uriel is directing us to and awakening us to what's going on right now, you know, with all of the protections of the environment gone. You know, it's affecting the earth, which is a being, right? The earth is a being, Mother Earth. And so if we contemplate, you know, are the structures straight and true? Are they standing in uprightness? Or if they're not, what is our responsibility toward that? And so this is the sort of the contemplation that this being is asking for at this time.
If I may say something about this, I want to mention once again, probably some of you already heard me say this, but I am deeply troubled by the statements that I found in some of Rudolf Steiner's writings about the fact that the earth, the physical earth, is the physical body of Christ. Because this changes dramatically the perspective on everything that we do. Not only the etheric part of the earth is the etheric body of Christ, but the physical is the physical. And in the Gospel of St. John, he states, when there's a passage that says, "He who eats my bread trods me underfoot," Steiner says this should literally be taken literally, to mean that the physical body of the earth is the body of Christ. And now the fact that Uriel, as you mentioned, directs humans to look into the mineral world as in the physical part of the world is in a way an invitation to look at the Christ.
Thank you. That's exactly true. And I think that's our work now. You know, that what do we, you know, we can say Mother Earth, but we can also say the body of Christ, and it's the same thing. And you know, does that even make our responsibility greater? Yes. Thank you.
That is the troubling part, that the responsibility is as if it wasn't already enough before this. Now, in the light of this, it's even more engaging.
Well, as a Rosicrucian, I do know that God is all there is, and my ability to move or to just be, because y'all know some deep stuff up in here with the earth being, you know, I mean, I got some more reading to do, because this is very deep esotericism, and I am very, very happy to be here to learn more. Thank you.
Krista, did you have something to say? You were raising your hand before.
Well, I think a lot of people have reflected similar thoughts of mine. I think that I was really actually relieved when you shared that this is kind of a release of sorts, because I think that so much of the negativity and fear that people have been experiencing is a lot of like this, right? Kind of this holding in a little bit, and that this release is coming, and then also knowing that this new moon is coming. So I just feel it as even more so an important time and a responsibility for all of us to not be operating out of fear, but to really take this opportunity to wake up and to just be mindful of our actions and how we are moving forward as human beings evolving.
Beautiful. Yeah, you know, and something else I was thinking about with the moon too, and I really appreciate the thoughts of the Isis Sophia. I think that's really important to remember that, you know, tonight and before the moon is becoming is the dark of the moon now. So we haven't hit the new moon yet. So this is the time where the ancient myths talk about, you know, this being having a journey into the underworld, and so, you know, that's a really powerful time. That many of the dark mysteries of the womb, right, the womb and the tomb, take place in the darkness, right? That's this idea of the occult, the hidden. That's where a lot of the power is. So, you know, to not be afraid of the dark, but to allow that time before the birth, the rebirth to this gestation, you know, and then with the new moon, we can say, okay, what is it that we want to see grow into fullness, you know, and to put that out there into the world and help make that manifest.
Well, and I think it's also significant, not only the moon, but like we're going to be coming into the sign of Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. And then also like Mercury is retrograde in Cancer right now. And I just think everything is very like potentized right now.
Yeah. You know, I was also thinking about, besides bringing in John the Baptist, you know, for a little help, the moonbeams. You know, Sunder talks about these primordial teachers that have their fortress on the moon. You know, can we call them out too and say, yo, we need a little help over here, guys? Why not?
I just would like to add, you know, with all of the thoughts that we carry with us and all the intentions that we carry with us during the day, that in our sleep, as we breathe out and we are bodiless, we are our spirit and soul beings, then we truly are communing totally with the beings on the other side of the veil. That is our opportunity. And so the work, yeah, we do during the day, but the work is at night as well. And that work refreshes. And I think I want to address that with all the responsibilities that are piled on one after another. Well, so is the refreshment of sleep that much stronger as we carry these our sense of responsibility for these things. And then we wake up even from negative occurrences of the day before, but we wake up strengthened. And I just want to say that that's a very real possibility. And that's how we are carried. We're not doing this alone. It's not too heavy.
I want to thank everyone for all of their contributions to this wonderful conversation. We're reaching the end of our time, and I want to invite Hazel to just have some closing thoughts here.
Well, thank you. And boy, I'm totally awake, but I feel refreshed. So thank you for this wonderful opportunity. It's just been delightful to be with you. And I feel now that we have a good team for this work ahead of us. And of course, yes, let's call in all the heavy hitters and even the elemental realm. You know, I think it's important to really reach into this realm that is so powerful and so alive right now. So I wanted to just end with this poem given to us by Rudolf Steiner about dragonflies, which really gives us a clue of what to watch for during this summertide season. That we can find helpers everywhere if we only look for them. So it's called Welten Warmer. Summer, in radiant heights where, glistening in the sun, the friendly dragonflies are, flitting out rays of warmth, which blend into the space around. Rest there, O my soul, for thinking of me, they weave from sadness strength. Already I can feel how they are sensing me, how warmth streams from them, permeating me. The spirit dissolves in cosmic interweaving, the earthly heaviness into light of the future. So thank you, friends. I look forward to this work together over these next few days as we meet the summer solstice and the ring of fire and all the other tests that we have, knowing that we're together. So thank you.
Thank you, Hazel.
Thank you, Hazel.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.
Hazel.
She got that from Benedict's wife.
Why don't you read one translation and I'll close with the one from
In this, the sun's own hour, it is for thee to recognize the tidings wisdom filled, to beauty of the worlds now yielded up, feeling thyself in thee. Experience this. The human eye can lose and find itself within the cosmic eye.
In the hour of the sun, it is up to you to understand these tidings filled with wisdom, surrendered to the beauty of the world, Feel yourself inwardly experiencing. The human eye can lose itself and find itself in the eye of the world. Hazel, thank you so very much. I'm moved to try to have an embodied conference sometime soon in the Denver, Boulder area and invite you.
I look forward to that. Thank you.
Bring it in such a living way with a lightness and a sense of humor and profound depth. So I don't say these things lightly. I look forward to continuing, if you have a little bit of time, our conversation now that we close with the blowing out of the candle, our formal session. Do you have a little bit of time?
Sure, sure.
Wonderful. Friends, please make use of this rare opportunity. And with that, I'll blow the candle out.